After she rejected me 5 times, I vanished from her life. Explores the bittersweet truth that love isn't always about possession. Sometimes it's about understanding timing, pain, and growth. The story follows Ethan, whose repeated heartbreak from Clara's rejections leads him to disappear, only for fate to bring them back together years later. Through letters, regrets, and forgiveness, both characters confront their past mistakes and hidden truths, realizing that love cannot bloom without emotional honesty. It's a story of lost chances, self-worth, and the healing that comes when two broken souls finally meet at the right moment, even if it's too late to start again. It's strange how hope can outlive logic. For years I waited for her, even after she said no over and over again. Her name was Clara. She wasn't the kind of girl people forgot easily. Not because she was loud or flashy, but because everything about her felt unfinished. Like a song that never reached its last note. The first time I asked her out, we were 17. She laughed softly and said, "You don't love me, Ethan, you just love the idea of me." Maybe she was right, but I asked again, but a year later and again after that. 5 times in total. 5 no's, each one quieter than the last. The last time, she didn't even look me in the eye. She just said, "You need to stop waiting for something that's not coming back." That's when I finally disappeared. I deleted her number, stopped walking past her street, and quit checking her social media like it was a diary of my own mistakes. For the first time in years, silence felt like survival. Then one night, 2 years later, my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. "Do you still hate me?" I stared at the screen, heart pounding. There were only 2 people who could send me something like that, and only one whose words could still make my hands shake. I typed, "Who is this?" The reply came instantly. Someone who should have said yes. My chest tightened. It was her, Clara. 2 years. That's how long it had been since I last saw Clara, the girl who taught me what heartbreak truly meant. In those 2 years, I rebuilt my life, got a job, moved to a new city, learned to laugh again, though it always sounded hollow, like an echo in an empty room. Then that text came. Someone who should have said yes. I didn't reply that night, or the next, but she didn't stop texting. "Ethan, I know I don't deserve your time. I thought I was protecting you. Can we just talk once?" Her words twisted something inside me, anger, nostalgia, maybe both. I wanted to ignore her, to protect the peace I'd earned, but curiosity is a cruel thing. On the 3rd day I sent back, "1 coffee. That's all," she replied instantly. "Tomorrow." Same cafe as before. The cafe hadn't changed. Same old cracked wooden chairs, same smell of burnt coffee beans, but she had changed. Clara looked tired, not just physically, but in her eyes, like someone who'd been running from herself and finally got caught. She smiled when she saw me. "You came." "You said 1 coffee," I replied flatly. She looked down, fingers trembling around her cup. "I know I hurt you, Ethan. You asked me 5 times. And I said no. Every single time. Not because I didn't care, but because I was scared." I frowned. "Scared of what, me?" "No," she whispered, voice cracking. "Scared of losing you after saying yes." For the first time, I didn't know what to say. Every memory, her laugh, her rejections, the sleepless nights, came flooding back like a wave I wasn't ready for. "Then why now?" I finally asked. "Why come back after 2 years?" Her eyes glistened. "Because I thought I was over you. But when I saw you disappear, I realized I lost something I can't replace." I looked at her, heart heavy. "And what if I've already moved on?" Her lips trembled, and for a moment I thought she'd cry. But she just smiled weakly. Then I guess I finally got what I deserved. Silence fell between us, thick, unbreakable. Outside the world kept moving, but for us time felt frozen. As she stood up to leave, I noticed she still wore the same necklace I gave her years ago, the one she swore she'd never wear. And that's when it hit me. Maybe love doesn't die when you're rejected. Maybe it just hides, waiting for the right kind of pain to bring it back. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every word Clara said replayed in my mind. "Scared of losing you after saying yes." What kind of logic was that? What kind of love refuses to exist because it's afraid of dying? I sat by my window staring at the rain hitting the glass, wondering if maybe she had changed, or if she was just lonely. Sometimes people don't come back because they love you. They come back because the world stopped loving them. The next day, I found something unexpected in my mailbox. No name, no address. Just a small brown envelope with my initials scrawled across it, EA. Inside, a folded letter, old, smudged, and tear-stained. The date on the top corner? 2 years ago. The same week I disappeared from her life. My hands trembled as I began to read. Ethan, you asked me again today if I loved you. And I lied again. Not because I wanted to, but because I didn't know how to love you the way you deserved. My father told me once that love makes people weak. I grew up believing him. I watched my mother fall apart after he left. And I swore I'd never let anyone have that kind of power over me. But then you came, like with your kindness, your patience, your stupid jokes, and I started breaking all my promises. I wanted to say yes, Ethan, every time. I just didn't know how to not be afraid of it. By the time I finished, the paper was soaked. Not by the rain, by my own tears. She had loved me. All those rejections, they weren't rejection at all. They were fear. But fear can ruin even the purest love. And it had. The next evening, I met Clara again. This time I asked her to come. She arrived in a gray coat, hair damp from the drizzle. I handed her the letter. You never sent this, I said quietly. Her eyes widened in shock. You found it? It was in my mailbox today. She let out a shaky laugh. I wrote it the night before you left town. I never sent it because I thought it was too late. It was, I said softly, but somehow it still found me. We sat there, staring at the paper between us, two people who loved each other too much, too wrong and too late. Do you think we could start over? She asked finally, voice trembling. I looked at her for a long time. The boy who once begged her to love him was gone. The man sitting before her had learned what silence costs. Clara, I said, sometimes love isn't about starting over. Sometimes it's about knowing when to stop. Her tears fell silently, one after another, and I knew, this time, she wasn't crying because I left. She was crying because she finally understood why I had to. 3 days passed after that last meeting, and I told myself it was over. No more texts, no more second chances, no more letting my heart crawl back to the same place that once destroyed it. But life never ends things cleanly. It always leaves one thread hanging, and when you pull it, everything unravels. That thread came in the form of a message from Clara's younger sister, Lily. Ethan, I know you probably don't want to hear anything about Clara, but there's something you should know. It wasn't her fault. Her fault? My chest tightened as I typed back. What do you mean? She never told you about Dad. Did she? I agreed to meet Lily that evening. We sat in a quiet diner outside town. The kind where old songs play and no one looks at you twice. Lily looked nervous, twisting her ring as she spoke. Clara didn't reject you because she didn't love you. She rejected you because Dad made her promise. Promise what? Lily's eyes filled with tears. That she'd stay away from you. What? He thought you'd ruin her future. Said love distracts people from ambition. You remember how strict he was, right? He told her if she ever said yes to you, he'd cut her off completely. College, money, everything. I stared at her, numb. She could have told me. She wanted to, Ethan. You think those 5 rejections were easy for her? She'd come home and cry for hours. But she thought if she told you the truth, you'd hate her father. And she didn't want you carrying that burden. I didn't realize I was crying until Lily reached out to hand me a napkin. She didn't push you away because she stopped loving you, Lily whispered. She pushed you away to protect you. That night I walked home through the rain, the streets glowing under the streetlights. For the first time, I didn't feel angry at Clara. I felt broken for both of us, for what love could have been if the world hadn't interfered. When I got home, I found another message from her. Ethan, I know you know now. I didn't mean for you to find out like this. I just didn't want you to hate me anymore. I didn't reply. Not because I didn't care, but because sometimes silence is the only thing that keeps you from falling apart again. But deep down, I knew it wasn't the end of our story. Not yet. Because some connections don't fade, they wait. Quietly, for the right time to come back. Forgiveness. It's such a soft word for something that feels like tearing your heart open twice. For days, I tried to convince myself I'd moved on. That Clara's truth didn't change what she did. But it did. Knowing she had loved me, even in her silence, was like discovering an old wound that never healed because I never knew how deep it went. One evening, I stood outside the same cafe where it all started. The lights were dim, the chairs half empty, and the air smelled like nostalgia. I hadn't planned to see her again, but she was there, sitting in the corner, staring out the window as if waiting for something that might never come. Our eyes met. For a moment, the world felt smaller, like everything else blurred. leaving only us in the space between. She stood up slowly. I wasn't sure you'd come. I wasn't sure either. We sat down, neither speaking. The silence wasn't awkward this time. It was heavy, filled with everything we didn't say years ago. Finally, I broke it. Lily told me the truth. She looked away, shame flickering across her face. I didn't want you to find out like that. You should have told me. I know, she said softly, but I thought I was saving us both from pain. You didn't, I whispered. You just delayed it. Her eyes glistened with unshed tears. So what now, Ethan? You know the truth. Does it change anything? I stared at her. The same girl who once rejected me 5 times. The same girl who still carried my heart like a scar. It changes everything, I said finally, because now I understand what broke us. But that doesn't mean I can fix it. She nodded slowly. Maybe we don't have to fix it. Maybe we just need to forgive it. For the first time in years, I reached across the table and held her hand. It felt familiar, warm, trembling, real. And in that moment, I realized something. Forgiveness doesn't mean going back. It means finally letting go of what you once begged to stay. But before I could say anything more, her phone buzzed. She glanced at it and her expression changed. The color drained from her face. Clara? I asked. What's wrong? She looked up at me, eyes wide with panic. It's my dad, she whispered. He's in the hospital. And just like that, everything came crashing back. The ghosts, the promises, the past we thought we'd buried. Because sometimes love doesn't ask if you're ready. It just tests if you're strong enough to face the pain again. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and regret. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead as Clara rushed ahead of me, her coat trailing behind her like the remnants of a storm. I followed silently, unsure why I was even there. Maybe because despite everything, her pain still felt like mine. When we reached the ICU, she froze in front of the glass window. Inside, her father, the man who had once decided our fates, lay unconscious. Tubes and monitors beeping rhythmically beside him. She didn't cry. She just stared. He doesn't look like the man I remember, she whispered. He used to feel invincible. Now he just looks small. I stood beside her, not saying a word. Because what could I say? This was the man who'd called me a distraction. The man who'd told her love makes people weak. And yet here he was, an infragile, defeated, human. The nurse came out quietly. He's stable, but the doctors say it's serious. He was asking for you before he passed out. Clara blinked, startled. For me? The nurse nodded and left us there in silence. Later, when she finally went in, I stayed outside, watching through the window as she sat beside him. Her hand trembled as she reached for his. I couldn't hear the words, but I saw her lips move. Apologies, maybe. Or anger that took years to surface. Then suddenly, she turned, eyes finding me through the glass and motioned for me to come in. I hesitated. Every part of me wanted to turn away. But I walked in anyway. Her father's eyes opened slightly. Even weak, his gaze was sharp, familiar. Ethan, he murmured. I nodded slowly. Yes, sir. He looked at his daughter, then back at me. I was wrong. The words hit harder than any insult he'd ever thrown at me. I thought I was protecting her, he continued, voice cracking. But all I did was teach her how to be afraid of love. Clara squeezed his hand, tears finally falling. Dad, he smiled faintly. Don't waste years the way I did. Then his hand went limp in hers. The heart monitor wailed, and in that second, time stopped. An hour later, we sat in the hospital hallway, both silent, both broken in ways we couldn't describe. He said your name before he collapsed, Clara whispered. I think he wanted to make things right before it was too late. I looked at her, the woman I'd loved, lost, and found again under the harshest light imaginable. Maybe he just did, I said softly. We didn't hug, we didn't kiss. We just sat there, 2 souls finally free of the ghosts that had haunted them. That night as I walked her home, she stopped by her gate and turned to me. You know, she said, voice trembling, the first time you said you loved me, I was too scared to believe it. But if you ever say it again, she paused, smiling sadly through her tears. I promise I won't say no. 6 months passed, 6 months of silence, healing, and learning how to breathe again without her name lingering in every inhale. Clara moved out of the city after her father's funeral, said she needed distance, a place where the memories wouldn't follow her. And I understood, because sometimes you have to leave the places that loved you, broken just to remember what peace feels like. I didn't reach out, didn't text, didn't call. But I thought of her. Every morning when the sun hit the window just right, and every night when the world went quiet enough to remember what was lost. One Saturday, while walking through a bookstore, I saw her again. She was in the poetry section, tracing her fingers over a page the way she used to trace them over my hand. She didn't see me at first. But fate isn't subtle. It always finds a way to make old souls collide. When she finally looked up, her eyes widened. That familiar spark flickered back for just a second before softening into something calm. "Ethan," she said softly. "Hey, Clara." She smiled, the kind of smile that used to undo me completely. But this time it didn't hurt. It just felt right. We talked for a while about her new city, her new job, how she was helping kids with trauma rebuild their confidence through writing. She said losing her father made her realize how much damage silence can do. "I kept too many words locked inside," she said. "Now I try to help others speak before they break." I couldn't help but smile. "You always had a way with words. You just never knew it." She looked at me for a long moment, eyes soft and steady. "Do you ever think about us?" "Every day," I admitted. "But not with pain anymore. Just gratitude." "For what?" "For teaching me that love doesn't have to end to change you." She nodded, her eyes glistening but her smile unwavering. "You grew up, Ethan." We both did. We stood in silence for a while, surrounded by shelves of unwritten stories. And then she did something I didn't expect. She handed me a small notebook. "I wrote something for you," she said. "A long time ago. I just never had the courage to give it." Inside, on the first page, in her familiar handwriting, were 6 words that shattered me and healed me all at once. "I loved you every single time." I looked up, but she was already walking away, sunlight spilling across her hair as she turned toward the exit. No dramatic goodbye, no promises of forever. Just peace, quiet, beautiful, deserved peace. That was the last time I saw her. But in that moment I realized something I'd been too blind to see before. Some people aren't meant to stay in your life. They're meant to stay in your story. And Clara would always be mine. The girl who rejected me 5 times but taught me more about love than anyone who ever said yes.